Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Indigo Stars, and today I want to talk to you about a game that is pretty important to me. I've already talked a bit about it, and if you've seen my latest roleplay, then you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Because today I'm going to tell you a bit about what I know about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. And Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, it's quite a mouthful, is a game by Troika Games, and the rights belong to White Wolf. And White Wolf is a company that has created the world behind Vampire the Masquerade. It started with a pen and paper role-playing game, which I have to admit I do not know much about, but if you know Dungeons and Dragons, it's kind of like that. You sit on, well, you don't have to sit on a table, but you sit around a table, sort of. And one person is the game master who will lead the game and will come up with things that will happen. And the players will have their own characters, and there's a book, there are books actually, which you can see the rules about the world, certain creatures, and you just play around with that, and it's like role playing. It's not something I've done, but it is something that I would one day like to do. And Troika, I'm not sure if they made previous games, but there have been two games before this. The first, I think, just called Vampire the Masquerade, and the second, Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, I think. But personally, I've only played the last one. And that one is from 2004. And they had a lot of problems with the development of the game because the publisher, I think, is Activision, and they really pushed them to release the game as soon as possible, but they were working with a new engine, which is the Source engine by Valve. They weren't used to it a lot, and they had to make do with things they just didn't know much about, and with rushing it, they eventually released the game in 2004, but it was obviously an unfinished project, riddled with bugs and a lot of problems. But even so, it did gain a big cult following, and a lot of fans are still actively making patches to fix the bugs in the game and to make it run smoothly, even on newer operating systems. And the last update, the patch update, is actually from a few months ago, so it's pretty great to think that 10 years after the game has been released, and there are still fans so passionate about it that they create their own fan content. And in the game itself, it is an action role-playing game, and you can create your own character. You cannot change too much about it, but you can give your character a name. You can choose gender, either male or female. You can choose a background history, but some versions of the game do not have that option, but the latest patches should have that in. And the history will give you bonuses and disadvantages, dependent on which one you choose, of course. But you can fit something, choose something that will fit the backstory of your character, a certain playstyle that you want to pursue. And besides that, you can also choose between 7 clans. And clans are kind of like bloodlines, which is also where the game's name came from. And these bloodlines are the following. The first is the Bruria, and the Bruria are all about pure strength. They're really strong defensively and offensively, but they have a large chance of the beast within them taking over, and they will become violent and go on a killing spree. So you have to keep that in check during the game. The second is Toreador, and Toreadors are very close. One of the clans that are closest to the humans. They love arts and they really know how to play people, so they're really well versed in the act of seduction and persuasion. And Malkavian are up third, and Malkavian are one of my favorite clans. And their thing is that every Malkavian is clinically insane. And the difference between one Malkavian and the next, but they're all insane, just different kind of strains. So one might be a sociopath, the other might be leaning towards manic depression, but the thing about them is that they all have a certain wisdom. Their speech is very strange even during the game, but they do have a certain insight in certain people, certain events. And even though they are pretty nuts, they're still valued in the vampire community and society, and they work as seers and sometimes even as jesters. And another clan that plays a large, important role in vampire society are the Ventru, and they are the born-again leaders of the vampire world. They know how to play people and vampires alike, but more in a business-like sense, not really connect with them like the Toreador would, but lead them and be above them and just authority figures. Next is a clan that is quite difficult to play, but it can make for a very interesting playthrough and an experience, and that is the Nosferatu. The Nosferatu are a race that are physically disfigured. They look like really scary vampires. They're all faces, a grayish green tone with just lumps, and they have really scary looking fangs and teeth. And even among other vampires, they're seen as dirty and unclean and just unpleasant. But their downfall also means that they're forced in the shadows, but that is also where they excel. They're really good at stealth and reconnaissance, and they have actually set up their own internet that runs parallel on the internet as we know it, which they use to communicate through and share hacking tips, because their information network is bigger than anyone could imagine. And thus they also play a very important role in society. Next up are the Tremere, and the Tremere are very mysterious. They're kind of like your typical mage character, since they're physically quite weak, but they use magic to turn the tide. And they use a special form of blood magic that only the Tremere have mastered. And they are generally feared by other vampires, but they do keep to themselves and they don't share their secrets with anyone outside of their clan. The Tremere typically live in chantries and are governed by their own regent who teaches them as like he takes on apprentices, I guess. The last playable race for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is the gangrel, and a gangrel is very they're like lone drifters, I guess. They don't really hang out with the other vampires, and they're very animalistic. They can change into a wolf form, or they can summon animal familiars like a swarm of bees, I think, or moths, or something else that's scary and crawly. And in the game itself, since it's a role-playing game, you have, besides that, a lot of customization as far as your skills go. You have your social skills, your combat skills, and every class also has 3 disciplines that they are awarded. And for a Malkavian, that would be dementia, which can make people around you crazy, basically. For a gangrel, that would be animalism, where they change into animal form. And for Bruria, that would be something like, what do they have? I think they have presence, which I think, do they? I'm getting confused, it's kind of late. I think the Bruria have potence, that was it, yeah. And potence increases their combat prowess. So every clan has their own, sort of magic, I guess, that you can use. It's just like skills that you can activate with your buffs or attacks. But you don't have to fight everything if you don't want to. In the game, you can use certain dialogue options to get your way, which are also buffed by your skill in things like persuasion or seduction. But if you really can't avoid fighting, or if that's just your style, there are 2 ways to fight, and one is melee and the other is ranged. And for both options you have a variety of weapons available. For melee it would be knives, baseball bats, tire irons, axes, katanas. And for ranged you would have your good old pistol, shotguns, sniper rifles, etc. But to use these weapons effectively, you have to spec into them in your character sheet. And the way you earn points for that, which are called experience points, is completing quests. And you'll be doing a lot of quests in the game. And besides having your the stats that I just talked about, you also have 2 separate stats which determine how well you're gonna do in the game and which things you run into. And these 2 are Masquarade points and your humanity. And your humanity is pretty straightforward. Every time you do an act like killing an innocent or stealing from an innocent, you will lose a tiny bit of your humanity. The more and more you lose your humanity, the more you will give in to the beast, to the monster that's inside of you as a vampire. And the Masquerade point is where the title of the game comes in. The Masquerade is something to be upheld, for if humans would publicly find out about vampires, you probably wouldn't be as safe as him anymore. So if you do something that will help the Masquerade, you will gain a point. And if you do something that violates it, like attacking someone on the streets, biting them, you will lose one of your Masquerade points. And if you hit 0 on either of those points, then it will be game over. And that's one of the two ways, that's two of the three ways to get a game over in this game. And the third way is by dying. And then you will suffer a final death. You will turn to ashes and the game will be over. So don't die. And besides the 7 clans that you can belong to, there's also a few sects that you encounter, and some of them you can actually join up with and do quests and missions for, and eventually even choose for them in the end game. The first sect is the Anarchs, and the Anarchs are a rowdy bunch who are against most of the rules. They live in a live and let live attitude, but otherwise they don't want silly and petty rules in their opinion. They basically want anarchy, but and they're mostly against the Camarilla, which is the second sect. And the Camarilla are the self-proclaimed leaders, the ones who uphold vampire law. And you can choose to do quests for them. You will encounter them pretty early in the game. Then you have a sect that probably isn't going to be as friendly, and that is the Sabbat. And the Sabbat is a sect full of common fodder, I guess. Members of the Sabbat are made in bulk just to use as shock troops, sorta. And if you go higher up the line, you'll find really powerful people who are pulling the strings. But I don't want to ruin everything about the game. And the last sect that I'll talk a bit about is the Kuei-jin. And the Kuei-jin are kind of like vampires, but they're a different breed altogether. And they are of Asian descent. And if you start up the game, you will start up as a fledgling, a vampire that has just been sired, just made vampire. And a little cutscene will play and you'll learn a bit about the world that you've just been plopped into. And eventually you'll be sent on a number of quests. And in total there's 4 big quest hubs. The first quest hub is Santa Monica. The second is downtown LA. The third is Hollywood. And the fourth is Chinatown. And I guess that's all there is to say about the game without spoiling a lot about it. But it really is one of my favorite games of all time. It has really gotten me into role-playing games in general, and just gaming in general, I suppose. And it also really fueled my love for vampire lore and everything about vampires. And as we speak, I just got off playing a bunch of my, I think, 5th or a sixth playthrough of the game. It really is so amazing that you can just replay it with all these different clans, make different choices, go for different weapons, and there's just so much you can do and so many choices you can make. So I hope you learn a bit about this amazing game, and if you haven't already, I would really suggest you check it out, because with the fan patches it actually runs quite fine. I haven't had any problems with it. And even if you're not really a gamer or not really interested in games like that, I still hope it was rather enjoyable to listen to me ramble about one of my favorite games. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.